Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you from a beautiful downtown Brooklyn. We're here with wonderful Natalie, Alicia, an estate attorney and asset protection attorney that I've been working with for quite some time. And myself, as usually, I'm your host here, Panasenko, financial advisor with Moloney Securities. So it's a wonderful day. And again, we are fortunate to have Miss Natalie, Alicia.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gene. Thanks
absolutely. So much. And congratulations to Natalie on a book launch that I've been fortunate to be invited and attended last week. I will tell you, I attended quite a few of those events between Anthony Bourdain and Nelson DeMille. That was quite something, totally in a different category. So again, between athletes and celebrities and judges and then deans of law schools, that was quite some event. So congratulations to your accomplishment, Natalie.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. This is, again, the book, Natalie. Congratulations. As a financial advisor, I, more than probably an average person, can agree that this is so way overdue book. I can only wish that I was 20 years old and I had a chance to get hold of this wonderful book. It should be really a Bible, a financial and life Talmud, for not just younger people, but a lot of people in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. Because very unfortunately, as we both know, people graduate from schools, with bachelors and masters, and they get their PhDs and all kinds of great degrees. The level of education, as far as financial education, business savvy is not really up there. And again, I want to compliment you on addressing so many things about this book. And I want to talk about this book and what really prompted you to put it together.
Great. Thank you, Gene, so much for having me. So the book, like you said, is a manuscript for how people can live successful lives, no matter if they're 9 or 90. So here's what happens so often. We go through the ranks. We do what our parents told us to do. Go to college, get a degree, go to graduate school. So often, our students, our children, are coming up with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth in debt. And they simply cannot get out of it because of the 8% compounded interest. Now, Gene, as you know, as a financial professional, very few funds give an 8% guarantee return.
It's non-existing. The second you take your funds out of the bank account, the only guarantee you have is that there's no guarantee. And you can say, well, gee, I really would like to have an insured account. Well, we know FDIC insured deposit accounts are yielding nowadays the whole whopping 0.25 percentage point. Well, when you factor the inflation and the cost of living and tax ramifications that we jointly as a team and individually as professionals we address on a regular basis, the people are losing money on a daily basis. So it's so true.
They are. And yet the government is allowing for 6, 7, and 8% loans to be due from students on students' back. This is what this book hopes to address. As Gene said, I'm an estate attorney. So what does that mean? I deal with people's livelihoods with a team-based approach, working with great professionals like Gene. We do a lot of work often, and we really think about the holistic view for making sure that our clients are taken care of. What my book does is not only talk to the financial perspective, but also how to be successful in terms of meeting great people, negotiating, networking, entrepreneurship, sales, presence. But so often, our clients are unaware of the financial ramifications that can happen if they don't have a proper plan. And Gene, I know you read this book in detail. I spoke about some horror stories that have happened when people don't update their beneficiary request or don't make sure that their deed to their property matches what they actually want to happen. And I know this doesn't happen with your clients because you have such a meticulous way of making sure everything works together.
Work with wonderful professionals like yourself.
Thank you.
You can't know everything, so you want to elect the best attorneys, the best CPAs. So again, as working as a team, we can really bring the most holistic approach, comprehensive financial planning to facilitate our clients' lives.
Absolutely. And this is the crux of this book. No matter what you want to do, no matter who you want to be, you have to decide what that is. But don't forget that the basics of estate planning, of a will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy, potentially a trust, and match with the right financial planning is absolutely required for anything to go your way, because I don't care how much you make, I care how much you protect and save for you and your children.
And it's so true indeed, Natalie. We're dealing with the people from different walks of life, from mom and pops to celebrities and athletes, and some of those wonderful people were present at your great book launch. And again, you're seeing a lot of times people just don't implement something which is a common sense strategy. How do you protect the assets? How do you protect the downside? And that's where I love working with you, because it is critically important to make sure that not only do we have the plan in place, but how do you actually implement the place? How do you actually execute those protection strategies? So I would like you to please talk more extensively about many things that you have done for our clients and how successful those strategies have been, and why it does make sense to have them implemented.
Great. So there is no way that they should not be implemented. Here's the fact. The fact is that 64% of people die without a will. Every single one of us is going to die.
How sick is that? Statistics are ridiculous.
And people have all these fantasies. If I have a will, I'm going to die. Guess what, Gene? We all have wills.
Right.
It's called the statutory code of the state that you live in. And if you do not affirmatively take control of your family's assets, guess what? The state you live in will. And wouldn't you prefer to be the one making the decision of who your kid's guardian is going to be? I think so. So, Gene, here's the thing. When it comes to basics, there's a will, there's a power of attorney, there's a healthcare proxy.
And they should be mandatory minimums to be implemented for every individual, for every married or single.
Absolutely. I don't understand how we can be required to have Obamacare or some kind of health care. We can be required.
Mandated by the federal government.
And how about insurance to drive a car? Now, what about a will when you know a guarantee 1,000% you're going to die?
Yeah. Death and taxes.
Death and taxes. There is no getting away from it. So here's the thing. The will, the power of attorney, the healthcare proxy, those are absolute musts for all my clients, and they make the basic of all the estate plans we do together. Now, what is a potential extra? It's a trust. Now, people say, I need a trust. Okay. That's not like saying, I need this one thing. I tell my clients, and you've heard me say this many times, Gene, you walk into Baskin Robbins, you have 31 flavors to choose from. That's kind of like trusts. Do you want something irrevocable? Mint chocolate chip? Do you want a revocable trust? Vanilla. How about some sprinkles added to it?
And it's so true, Natalie, because I personally had clients that were saying, look, I mean, I go on LegalZoom.com and they can generate it for me, for a fraction of what, full service attorney would advise. But as you said, yeah, I mean, you can get hold of certain instruments, but how customized, how personalized they're going to be, how well and not so well they're going to actually serve the needs of your family, your beneficiaries, your kids, your grandkids. Is it going to be the case where actually the federal and the state government are going to inherit all those assets or a portion of those assets because of the way that, the trusts have not been put together the way that, again, they should have been put together? So
often, it's a great point about the LegalZooms of the world, and it's not to say that LegalZoom doesn't give good documents.
Absolutely.
They do, but here's the problem. Unless you are a trained attorney in this area, you don't know how to properly execute the documents.
Absolutely.
So often, people will print out a will from LegalZoom, which is a perfectly fine will. However, they go to 3 banks and finally they find a notary, and the notary says, ma'am, we don't sign wills, because they don't want to be brought back in court in the event of a contest. So that will is essentially worthless because no one will notarize it. And even if you have a notary who is properly going to sign the documents, they have not been trained. Here's how you sign a will when you go to notary school. There is no such thing. So, Gene, you've seen me sign probably hundreds of wills.
I have witnessed it.
You've been a witness. And you have seen me constantly say, do you understand that this is your will? Do you understand who your children are? Do you understand what this will do for them? Do you wish for these 2 people to be witnesses? If you don't ask these questions, it's not a properly executed will and thereby can be contested, costing thousands, if not more, on the back end.
It's amazing, Natalie, and you and I, we spoke so many times in front of the clients, confirming that a lot of times the people that really become their own worst enemies because you present them with documented facts. I mean, this is what will take place unless you implement those strategies, unless you get them executed. And unfortunately, again, sometimes the people, they do listen to you and I, and sometimes they don't. So again, let's talk about, again, protection of assets through implementation of such strategy as long-term care insurance. Again, you work with a lot of folks out there in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and again, a lot of times we're getting responses, hey, I'm still in great health, I'm still in my wonderful shape, I'm 40 years old, I look better than some 25-year-old people. The problem is that as the people age, the insurance premiums, I mean, they just skyrocket. So the sooner they implement those kind of instruments, the better off they're going to be down the line and the more money they're going to save. Very fortunately, over the last few years, some insurance companies that we've been dealing with very extensively, instead of offering the old-fashioned long-term care insurance where, again, you pay premium over 10, 15, 20 years, and then if you die overnight in your sleep, then again, you don't have any cash value built in that strategy, in that policy, and there is no benefits to you or your families. So what we actually have been implementing so extensively are the universal policies with a long-term care rider, where pretty much every premium that the client is making is split into two different buckets. The first bucket obviously provides a long-term care insurance coverage, and the second one actually builds the cash value. So instead of losing the coverage at some point in their lives, the clients actually do have an incentive to stick longer and healthy, because at some point they can always cash that policy out and take the money out and spend the funds on themselves and their kids, the beneficiaries of the policies. If on the flip side they do need the long-term care insurance, instead of having to pay $250,000 up to $300,000 in the New York metro area, they actually have the benefits provided by that policy. So I would like you to again elaborate on how extensively you have been utilizing as an attorney those kind of strategies in your planning.
Gene, and I would tell those people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, I'm in my 20s, and I already have extensive long-term care coverages built into my program, because the younger you are, the healthier you are, the cheaper it is.
You see the value. I mean, you and I have seen so many times, the more money the clients have, the more apprehensive they are of the cost. So you're brilliant. You're a very successful attorney, one of the youngest, and one of the most successful I can think of across the country. And at the same time, you do implement the strategies. You eat your own cooking, so to speak.
Absolutely. And Gene, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It is almost a guarantee that people are going to need long-term care help. Why? Our medicine has gotten good enough to keep us alive longer. However, people are living with Alzheimer's or dementia for 20 years.
It happened, unfortunately, and the duration of the people staying, under the influence of those diseases is just exponential. You're talking about 10, 15, 20 years.
And just because their brain might not be working 100% does not mean that their body has shut down.
They're not going to be here. Yep.
So who is going to take care of them? Are you going to quit your job to take care of mom and dad? Maybe. But what if you don't have that luxury? Who is going to do that? So it is almost a certainty that for many of my clients, they're going through long-term care, a need. Whether it be at a nursing home or having a home health care aide, it's certainly a need. Now, this need is pressing, and it costs between $15,000 and $25,000 a month, as Gene was alluding to. So that can literally eat up most people's assets in 1 to 2 years. Can you imagine everything you have ever worked for disintegrating completely in 2 years because you didn't have long-term care insurance? It's an absolute no-no. I implore my clients, please talk to someone like Gene and get this policy in place.
Natalie, I can just say that I just wish that we had more wonderful attorneys representing the client's interests you have been doing. Literally, it's really quality over quantity. I mean, I know multiple professionals in the legal field, and again, after decades, literally in this line of business, they have not been able to offer a fraction of expertise and advice that I've seen you firsthand implement with our clients. And we're passionately advising our clients' family members, the kids, the grandkids, which so often kind of like wash their hands and they're saying, hey, this is really none of my business. Mommy and daddy, they've done quite well, so they do have their million and a quarter accumulated in their retirement accounts and brokerage accounts, so that will be sufficient. But I mean, what sense does it make to spend all that money on the long-term care and still have your mom and dad on your hands when the money is going out the window, when you can really implement the strategies for a fraction of the cost, be in a lot better position without agonizing day and night, without having to face the option, as you alluded to, of quitting their job and then being involved on a day-to-day basis of literally bathing their mom and dad, God forbid. So all those issues, they can be addressed and solved, by utilizing the strategies that we've been discussing here. Another strategy I know you've been very passionately implementing, especially with your celebrities, athletes, they can be on the top of the world today, getting signed up by the Knicks and Giants and what have you. Reality is that, again, just as easily as they get their $5 or $25 million contract, they can blow their discs, they can blow their kneecaps, and then tomorrow they're out of the game. And unfortunately, again, because most of them, they feel, hey, I'm only 20, 25 years old. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever to sit down with a qualified asset protection attorney, estate planning lawyer, financial advisor. Those issues are not being addressed. They think that their agents, they sign them up, they can really cover those problems, and it's not the case. I really would like you to share your experience, at least, a couple of cases,
sure.
As far as what you have seen.
Great. So I see we have some company over here talking about asset protection. Fantastic. So here's the deal, okay? Asset protection is everything. Like I said before, I don't care what you make, I care what you keep and protect. Let's discuss that in detail. So many of our celebrity and athlete clients will get married.
It's inevitable.
That's obstacle number one to retaining your wealth. Now, not to say that marriage is a bad thing. Marriage is a fantastic thing. However, if you don't take the necessary precautions to protect yourself, such as establishing a domestic asset protection trust, for example, in a state like Nevada or South Dakota, you literally are allowing your spouse to have access and discretion over all the pennies you've put together, which could be quite a lot if you're a celebrity or athlete.
Sometimes it's hard work. I mean, they can go out the window very fast.
Out the window. And as you have more and more kids together, the situation perpetuates. Now, people say, well, what about a prenup? A prenup is an amazing first step, Jean. However, so many prenups get contested, as opposed to a trust, which should be in addition to the prenup, which literally allows for, let's say, a spouse to be the trustee. Thereby, there is no instance where they could say, I didn't know about these assets. And the spouse is only the trustee during the duration of the marriage. So we have a floating spouse provision. How great, because now our clients who want to get divorced, boop, they serve with divorce, and as a result, their spouse is no longer able to access funds. It is an astronomical way to protect your wealth. What else can happen to our celebrity clients? Maybe they invest in a new technology or a company.
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time. They retire, they want to do something with their money. But what happens? The business can be like Uber that we were just talking about, which is getting imploding, and they're looking, all these terrible things are being said. So literally, they can put themselves as a personal person on the chopping block, and creditors of the company, if not done correctly, can come after their own wealth. It's insane.
It is. And it's interesting you just brought up Uber that we've been discussing right before we started this this segment, Natalie, and I'll never forget how you were kind enough to introduce me about 5 years back to a couple of clients of yours, just to give them a second opinion, and they had really the bulk of their net worth, if you remember, in a couple of taxi medallions that they bought really at the very top of the market, having paid almost $1 million. Well, I don't need to elaborate what happened to the prices of the taxi medallion taxi medallions, because with proliferation of Uber and Lyft and other car services, I mean, it really declined dramatically. I mean, you have seen a tremendous decline in the prices. So not having listened to the advice of the attorney and potential financial advisor, they really sustained, literally, very, very, very sizable losses, which would be huge amounts of money by itself, but especially considering the fact that it was really the bulk of their net worth. I hope you remember that case.
I do, and it so often happens, and it's not just the taxi medallions and Uber. Jean, literally the world is shifting every second. Technology is going to disrupt your industry. What have our clients done to make sure that they are minimizing their risk? And unless they have enough insurance and the right trust in place, they are going to be in big trouble. And I can just imagine, I mean, so many, even of my brethren, other lawyers at big law firms, I look at them and I think, you're not going to have a job in 10 years. Already we have like AI technology, IBM Watson, that is trying to take over first and second year at big firm law jobs.
Elon Musk is talking very extensively about those kind of issues. I mean, the first industry probably to fall victim to robotization is going to be probably the drivers. I mean, those long-distance drivers. And they're talking about civilized countries, developed capitalist economies like the U.S., Canada, Western Europe. You're talking about the amount of probably 12% of the workforce being involved in the long-term driving industries. So those jobs, they will go out the window. So how are you protected? How well your assets are positioned, to weather those kind of storms? So I'm so happy that, again, you address those issues on a regular basis, as I do. And again, it's critically important to have them addressed, hopefully sooner than later. We're almost out of time, but I really would like to just bring up briefly an issue of disability insurance, not the long-term care insurance, but disability insurance, which again, we're seeing professionals making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially here in New York. You don't need to be a rocket scientist, to have a sizable salary, and yet most of the people, they just don't have a disability insurance. And when you speak with them, the response I'm getting is, hey, I get through the employer. Well, most of the employer-sponsored disability income insurance plans, they provide just about 60% of the base salary. Well, again, we know that most of the people, their compensation includes bonuses, quarterly or annual bonuses, and other additional compensation on the top of the base salary. So if they do get disabled, I mean, their income is going to sustain a dramatic decline, up to 60, 70, 80% I've seen. I would like you to, again, just talk for a few minutes about your experience of having them implemented or not implemented with your clients, Natalie.
So disability insurance is extremely important, Gene. Like you said, the cost of living in places like New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Miami is astronomical. So God forbid, should you lose your money-making ability because of getting hit by a bus or getting hit by a drag racing car like I was, you need to make sure that payment is still coming, because I don't know about you, Gene, but my bills don't stop coming, God forbid, if there's an accident. So often I make sure that my clients have this in place because their income earning potential is of extreme importance, especially while they're in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And here's the thing I want to say too, Gene. So often, women, successful business owners, do not know this. And they are not advised, and they are being left behind. And maybe it's because they don't feel comfortable talking about this, but I cannot tell you how many times my girlfriends who are pharmacists, doctors, lawyers, business owners will come to me and say, so Natalie, what do you think about this? And what happens when I get married? And what should I do? They have no clue.
The lack of some basic education.
There is no financial education, even for these brilliant people. And I'm sorry to say, most of my fellow females do not have this basic education, and it's so important because women are more likely to live a longer time. They're becoming the CEOs of amazing companies. They're becoming the top professionals, and they don't have this coverage. And it's absolutely required because today many families exist on 2 incomes, not just 1.
And this is so true, Natalie. So again, we're talking about comprehensive financial planning. We're talking about comprehensive life planning because, again, it's not really about money. It's really about what we are trying to accomplish to let our clients enjoy their life dreams, enjoy better lives for themselves, their kids, and their grandkids, God willing. I can't thank you enough taking time off your very, very busy schedule. I know you're probably jet lagged. You just came back from Hawaii, and before that you were in Miami. Congratulations to you on your accomplishments. Let's keep our process of educating wonderful men and women who would love to be educated for their personal benefits to begin with, for the benefits of their families. Let's help them enjoy their dreams as much as possible. We welcome all the comments from our esteemed audience. As usually, our numbers, email, telephone numbers are going to be posted on the bottom of the screen, so please do get in touch. We would love to address your questions, concerns, suggestions in our upcoming segments, and we do thank you very much.
Thank you, and like Gene said, we are so happy to hear from you, but I take only compliments, no complaints.
Natalie, thank you so much again. Many more to come.